Hello there. Today I'll be talking about why I think the flipped classroom method is a strategy that you should consider using in your classroom, or at least start paying attention to and trying to figure out how to implement something similar to it. So first off, what is it, right? So usually in our classrooms, what we're used to is that we do all the instruction in class, right? Going over the lesson, all the content, questions, all of that done in class. And then by the time the students get home, that's when they do homework and work on problems. But the flip method will essentially just flips all of that. So at home, that's where you're going to be doing the instruction, right? Giving the students, introducing them to the lesson ideas and question prepping for class, right? So going over all of the content you need to do, basically just going over the lesson as you would in the classroom, just at home on video. And then in the classroom, that's where the students get to do all of the work, right? So you're answering the questions that they've had brewing before they come into class, and then you spend the rest of the time just problem solving, right? Going over all the problems you need to, essentially just doing what they would have done as homework in class. So what's the relevancy to using this in a math course, right? Why use flipped classroom in a math course? Well, students need more time working on problems, right? So when getting students used to math content, it's all about getting them hands-on experience with working with the different functions, ideas, whatever. But the regular classroom doesn't really allow for that, right? So flipping the layout of how the class functions solves that issue, because now students are getting 50 minutes, 45 minutes, all that time to work on the problem instead of just getting 10 minutes at the end of class and then doing all that at home without the instructor there, right? So it allows for more time for students to focus on the work itself. Explaining the pros and cons, right? So if a parent or another coworker came up to you and said, why do the flipped method? There are two pros and cons that you want to focus on. The main pro is that, well, it gets more time to work on problems, right? Again, math content areas, students need to be working on problems all the time in order for them to get the adequate experience they need to complete them successfully. So being able to spend 50 minutes instead of 10 minutes and then at home time working on the problems, that's how you get them to work on more problems, right? The main con, though, is that making sure students actually do the instruction portion, right? The instruction is always going to be self-motivated when you do it instructional videos at home for the student, right? The thing about that is that sometimes, some students are more willing to watch the videos while some students probably not going to be as willing. So just trying to make sure that you can find a balance between getting them to watch the instruction and then having them come to class and doing all the problems that they need to do. So how does the tech work, right? What kind of technology can you use in the flipped method? Well, the main thing, or one of the main things, is instructional videos, right? Videos just like this one, where you go over content, you go over the lesson, just as you would in a normal classroom lecturing about whatever it is you need to. You'd give those videos to students so they can watch on their own time, and then get questions brewing in their minds. Online discussion boards, this is another thing that you can do on the flipped classrooms. Not required, but again, this is probably some instruction related material that you would want them to focus on while at home. So you can do online discussion boards, get them talking amongst each other for all the content, and then overviews, right? So daily or weekly overviews, something like that. Just say, this is what we're planning on doing for today's lesson, or this is what we're planning on doing for this whole week, right? Just get them, have them realize, like, okay, this is everything we're going to be doing. This is what I'll have to pay attention to. This is what I'll have to, you know, focus on getting ready to learn. And then finally, question submission, right? Since we're not there in person during the flip method, we can't answer the questions just yet, right? We'll have to answer the questions when class starts. So having a place where question submission is, that would be a great way to get the immediate questions submitted, and then when class time comes, you can take a look at all of the questions that have been submitted and start answering them, making sure that there are no remaining questions or anything like that. But just having a place for them to insert their questions that they get while they watch the instructional videos would be a great idea as well. Now let's get to all the pros and cons, right? So if the pros, right, one of them is that we have more time to work for in class, right? I've been over that a few times. It's a very important part about the flip method and why it works great for math content. Good for busy students because they get to split up when they watch the videos and do all the instructional stuff on their own time, right? They don't have to meet any specific deadlines, right? I mean, before class is the deadline, but they don't have to meet any hard deadlines and have to worry about getting things in on time or anything like that, right? They just sit down and watch the videos when they can and when they need to as well. Next is good for struggling students, because struggling students can take a look at the videos and all the content however many times they want to, right? They can replay the videos, do anything like that, so they can make sure that content is hammered down however many times they need to. Allows for replay of instruction, again, good for struggling students as well, because students can take a look at the content again and again, however many times they need to. And for the cons, making sure students actually watch the instruction, because again, it's all self-motivation, so making sure that students are motivated is something that you have to make sure you're doing. Hard to maintain engagement for the same reason, right? It's not easy to get engaging videos. Some of them can be kind of boring. This one might be a bit boring, who knows? But yeah, so trying to make sure that the video is something that the students are going to stay focused on and working with. Time sink into creating videos and maintaining them. It does take a long while to make the videos, making sure everything in them is good and clear, making sure that all the technology is going well, and then just updating them, right? Sometimes you'll have to update videos, and that means like reshooting all of it. So it's just a lot of work going into the videos. How it enhances teaching and learning? Well, there are a few things, right? Students appreciated learning through using video material, the opportunity to study at their own pace, flexibility, and mobility brought about by accessible video lectures, and that learning is easier and more effective within the frame of the flipped classroom, right? So students find that this flipped classroom method really helps them get the most out of the content, because they're working at their own pace, most importantly, right? It's all about that, and then the flexibility of the online video lectures, being able to watch them anywhere at any time. That's certainly a great aspect of them too. Being able to watch them being able to watch a past video in the present as well is also great, because they can refresh on all of that content. They have it at their fingertips whenever they want to. And then along with that, the results from a study done on whether the flipped classroom method works, it indicated that the incorporation of the flipped classroom method in the teaching and learning process led to a statistically significant increase in cognitive learning outcomes of students. So it's quite clear that students are really getting what they need to get out of the flip method, right? The original classroom method does need fine-tuning, and being able to have the students work on everything on their own time and make it more flexible towards them certainly helps, right? It's always teaching for the students, not against them, which is the main idea behind the flipped method. So alignments with UDL. So for the methods of engagement, students have autonomy when viewing the lecture, right? They can do it whenever they want, wherever they want. They have full autonomy over that. Students engage with the material at their own pace. Again, it's all about working for the student, not against them. Students can do it whenever they want to, wherever they want to. It's all about making sure that they find the time and are able to watch the videos. Methods of representation. Students can change the speed of the instructional videos, just editing how they view the content, if they need it faster, or if they need to fast forward a certain part, or if they need to slow it down and pay more attention to this other part. Students can change the sound of instructional videos, depending on where they are, or depending on their hearing status, they can increase the volume or decrease it even. Students can add captions to the instructional videos. This is another thing. This is mainly for if they're hard of hearing or maybe deaf or something like that, or if they just like captions because it helps them follow along more easier, then they got captions to the video and work with it that way. For methods of engagement, students can pause the video to think about the content, right? It's all about their own pace again. So students have free reign to just pause the videos, think about what's going on, and then resume when they feel like they're ready. Teachers free to add interactive parts to the video as well, right? Again, as I said before, it's kind of tricky to make sure that you're getting students engaged with the video, but I'm sure that there are clever ways that teachers can make sure students stay interactive with the material, and they can add fun little bits to the video to make sure that students are engaged with it. Its effect on the learning environment. Characteristics of the flipped model and how they affect the learning environment. Well, first characteristic is the question submission area. And this is very good because shy students are more prone to ask questions, right? So let's say a student doesn't like raising their hand in class. Well, if the question submission is done before class time at home, they can submit their questions, go to class, their question will be answered and they would never have to raise their hand, full anonymity for it. So shy students can ask questions freely, right? They don't have to worry about raising their hand in class. Splitting up lecture and work lessens the weight of the class on the students, right? Because now we're not jamming content into them in 50 minutes and then jamming homework onto them when they go home, right? They're doing all the lecture on their own time whenever they need to. And then in class, we spend 50 minutes or however long the class is just breezily going through the content, right? We're going through this is how you do the problems. Let's do the problems. Lecture done before class time. Students get time to think about the content before working with it, right? This is another important aspect because usually with math content, it's kind of hard to immediately understand it, and that's what the traditional classroom method struggles with, right? You teach the content and then you automatically expect the students to start working with tough problems, but they need a few days or a day just going over like, okay, so this was the content and this is how you do things. Let me just sit on this idea for a bit before I start working with it, right? So this does exactly that. It gives them time to think about it and just get refreshed. And so that's basically the gist of the model. I hope this presentation was of use, and you should begin using it in your own classrooms as well.